So what is your favorite part about what you do?
I think just getting to talk to people, getting to meet people, getting to ask people questions about what it's like living in their neighborhood, what is their like little quirks that they get mad about, and then being able to come and be like, hey, this is why that happens, right? It's not a flaw or a fluke in the situation. Like, there's an actual purpose and reason for it. But just getting to kind of open the doors about what it is like to run a city for all of our residents. And so that's one of my favorite parts.
What's up, College Station? I'm Grace Hollowell, and today I'm joined by our Neighborhood and Community Relations Coordinator, Taitelyn Morris-Wise. Hi, Taitelyn.
Hi, Grace.
It is so fun to have you back on the show. The last time you were here, we were talking about the Christmas parade.
Yeah, with Barbara.
Yes, with Barbara, and that is not what we're here to talk about today, although It is August, and I feel like that is coming up very soon.
We are about to start planning the Christmas parade, but that's not what we're here.
No, we are here to talk about fun neighborhood and HOA related things today. And we had Tommy Schilling, our code enforcement supervisor, on last week, talking about our lovely students who are moving back to town, and how they can follow the rules and be good neighbors. And that ties into you and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. It is a lot of work. You know, living in a college town, we have a rotating population base. Every year it changes.
Yeah.
You know, you get kids educated up on what is going on in the city, and then they graduate. And then you have a whole new crop of kids coming and moving into the city. So it's a very unique situation that we're in, being in a college town, but it's also very rewarding.
Yes, and the one constant is you. You are the person to contact if our residents have questions about their neighborhoods. We were talking a little bit before we started. A new student had a question about the parking regulations in their neighborhood.
Yeah, and they reached out. They were like, I have no clue where to go, but I just want to make sure that I'm telling my guests where to park and making sure I'm not violating any rules. Nobody's going to get towed. Nobody's going to get mad at me. And so I made them like a little parking graphic, sent it over to traffic. They were like, yep, that looks good for what that neighborhood looks like. And then I sent it back to the student, and I was like, here you go. Here is just for you to have parking
put it on
information.
Your fridge.
Yeah, put it on your fridge. That way then the student can then tell her friends as they're coming over, like, hey, don't park on this side of the street, park on this side of the street.
Right.
Or, hey, park on this side street because there's no parking down our street.
Right. So for those who may not know, what else does your position entail? I know it's a unique to College Station position.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. I operate the Citizens University arm, so it's our access to the City of College Station program that we do. This year we created a high school version of that program called the Future Leaders Program.
Yes.
So it's similar to Citizens University, but dedicated to our high schoolers. And then I work with our HOAs. That is the foundation of what this role was built on, was getting engaged with our citizens and our residents through our HOAs, because they are just engaged citizens in the first place.
Yes, and I have never lived anywhere that had an HOA until I moved here, and they are helpful, especially if you're coming in, like our students may be from an area that is new to them, but there's those seasoned people who have lived here for a long time as well that can help guide them on how to be good neighbors, what the rules are for the neighborhood, and how to keep our city looking clean and beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
A happy place to coexist.
Yes.
So what changes for your job during this time of year versus the rest of the year?
It's a lot of the boots on the ground, trying to solve problems before they become problems.
Right.
Like that student who reached out, trying to figure out what the parking was before she started having people coming over. So it's a lot of that proactive, here's what to do so you don't get in trouble, as just everybody is starting to move in.
So what is your favorite part about what you do?
I think just getting to talk to people, getting to meet people, getting to ask people questions about what it's like living in their neighborhood, trying to what is their like little quirks that they get mad about, and then being able to come and be like, hey, this is why that happens, right? It's not a flaw or a fluke in the situation. Like, there's an actual purpose and reason for it. But just getting to kind of open the doors about what it is like to run a city for all of our residents. And so that's one of my favorite parts.
Yes, and you are also the liaison between the other departments. So if somebody reaches out to you with a question for utilities or for parks or whoever, you are the go-between to say, hey, I'll reach out to them for you, no biggie.
Yeah.
We'll get an answer.
Getting access to a government is sometimes hard and sometimes really, really confusing.
Yeah.
So if you ever have a problem with, our sanitation crew may have missed something, or you may have put out your trash too late and then they already passed by your house. If you don't know who to call for some reason, then my office exists to be that reason, or to be that person that you call. And to try to get it figured out for you. So I know a lot about a lot of different departments.
Yes.
Which is very fun, as just being able to talk to people and figure out their issues. Being able to be like, there's that reason. You're not crazy. That happens because of this. So that's just, it's very fun to just have a brain filled with all these fun facts that may do well in trivia, but...
So part of the HOA aspect of your job is the Neighborhood Partnership Program, and there's a Neighborhood Partnership Workshop coming up soon. What is it, and why does the city host it each year?
Yeah, so the Neighborhood Partnership Program, it's a free program for all of our HOAs and our neighborhood associations to participate in. And one of the benefits of being a part of the program is that we, as the city, are actively trying to help our HOAs and our neighborhood associations in whatever way we can, and that includes the Neighborhood Partnership Program.
Yeah.
It existed for a while, and then I think with COVID it went away. We brought it back 3 years ago. This is our third time hosting it since COVID happened. But it is a workshop that we partner with the Houston Community Associations Institute, which is a organization dedicated to working with HOAs and making sure they're being governed and managed well. We bring them in to the city once a year, and then we cover just different topics that will help an HOA leader in their leadership with the HOA, because nobody gets paid to be on the board for an HOA.
It's all volunteer.
It's all volunteer. You have your day job. You are not expected to be an expert in HOA laws and regulations. It is very hard, very confusing, very complex. And so Houston CAI, with a Neighborhood Partnership Workshop, they come in and they help you figure out how you can lead effectively.
Yes, and that is a good point. They're all volunteers. They may have kids, they may have jobs, they have other responsibilities, and they just want to help out their neighborhood. So we are here to provide an extra set of tools to help them do that the best way possible.
Absolutely. And some HOAs are governed, or not governed, but they're managed by an outside company, which is great. Other ones are just managed by themselves. And so that is another piece. But even for the HOA managers in the community, they are not expected to know every single little rule and regulation that comes down, because HOAs are governed by the state of Texas. The city of College Station does not create any rules or regulations for the HOAs. It all comes from the state of Texas. And so each legislative cycle, there are different changes and there are different things that come down the pipeline that, are confusing. And this workshop helps kind of figure that out.
Yes. So who should consider attending this workshop?
Literally anybody who has dealings with their HOA, anybody who is wanting to be on an HOA board one day, anybody who manages HOAs, and this even extends to neighborhood associations that are not to the same level as an HOA, but may have deed restrictions and may have other rules that, a volunteer group is supposed to work with. So.
Yeah. So as far as serving on an HOA or a neighborhood association goes, it can be very rewarding, but it also comes with challenges. What are some of the most common issues that you see neighborhood leaders facing?
Yeah. So with this, a lot of, again, it's a volunteer-based position, right? But you are living in the neighborhood that you are also governing.
Right.
You are living next to the people who you may have to tell one day, hey, you're breaking the rules.
Right.
And that gets our HOA leaders and neighborhood association leaders in a sticky situation where they want to be friends with their neighbors, but also they are put in a position that they can't always be friends with their neighbors. And so that's one of the big issues that we see with our HOAs. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Right? Nobody is actively wanting to go out and
say, hey, don't do that.
Yeah, hey, don't do that. Or, hey, don't pick on every little thing that their neighbors are doing. But the rules and regulations say that you have to.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest things that we see with them.
And why is it so important for neighborhood volunteers and board members to receive a training or a workshop like this?
Yeah. So again, volunteer-based position. This is not their day jobs. You're not expected to know every single rule, regulation. The laws that govern HOAs, there's no state agency also that oversees specifically HOA management within the state of Texas. It goes through, I believe, the Secretary of State. If you have any issues, you send a complaint to them. But the Secretary of State is overseeing a lot of other different things.
Right.
So they're not always
as responsive
because they have so much on their plates. But it's so hard with a volunteer-based position to be called an expert.
Right.
And so that's why we bring in the experts. We bring in the Community Associations Institute, who are the experts on HOA laws. They're at the forefront of everything, muddling through any changes that may happen or sorting through how stuff can be applied and stuff can be read. And they have really good advice because they have worked with a lot of HOAs. They've seen best practices, they've seen worst practices, and they can give you advice on what to do, what not to do. Maybe this will work and maybe it won't work. And so that is one of the benefits of this, is that we're bringing in outside experts who know a little bit more than we all do.
It reminds me of that. I think it's Farmers Insurance commercial. They know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the topics this year is deed restriction governance and enforcement, and we kind of brought that up a little bit. But for those who may not be familiar, can you explain what deed restrictions are and why they're important?
Yeah. So deed restrictions are, if you're thinking about rules and regulations, right? They're a little bit more stricter than city ordinances. They can cover a wide range of different things, but it is most often applied to a singular development or a singular tract of a development where they say this property, which may have 10, 20, 30 homes on it, is going to abide by these rules. And they can range from a lot of different things. But one of them, as an example, is, and this is a really common one, too, that you see with HOAs and deed restrictions. Your trash cans have to be covered at all times, right? They have to be behind a screen. That's a deed restriction because that is so, not nitpicky, but that is so specific in how they want it to be seen, that we as a city don't make that a requirement of our residents, but an HOA through their deed restrictions can.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I know it's that way in my neighborhood, and that explains why. I just, thought it was a rule to be a rule, but that, is a difference between a city ordinance and an HOA deed restriction. So for the workshop, it'll also cover handling complaints. What are some of the best practices for responding to resident concerns if you're on an HOA?
Yeah. So this goes back to like what we were talking about earlier with you're in the neighborhood. You're living in that neighborhood. You know what Mr. John was doing last weekend that, may not have been a fun activity, or he may have been visiting other family and wasn't able to take care of all this stuff.
Right.
So these intimate details about your neighbors. But then Mrs. Field down the street is getting mad, and she's coming to you and being like, Mr. John didn't do this. And you're like, I know, but he wasn't even here to do it. So it's hard to balance that. But it's just important to take everything with, grace. With grace.
With me.
With grace.
No, please don't bring me along for all of these. You can ask me questions on our social media, and I will happily answer them or send you to Taitelyn, but don't bring me along.
But just handling them with care, because, it is a volunteer-based thing, but your neighbors did trust you to be an unbiased party and helping to address it, right? That's why they elected you into your position to do that. But handling resident complaints is just about understanding what is going on in these people's lives and being respectful of also the rules and regulations. And it's a hard line to walk.
Yeah.
Especially because you're in the neighborhood.
Right. And nobody wants to be the bad guy.
No.
So what are some common misconceptions that residents may have about what HOAs can enforce versus what the city can enforce?
Yeah, so this is that difference between deed restrictions and city ordinances, right? We as the city of College Station get complaints all the time about, there's a student living down the street from me, but my neighborhood restricts that, or a rental unit is in my neighborhood, but we don't allow that via our HOA deed restrictions. Or again, that trash screening thing in HOA can enforce that, but we don't have that ordinance. Another one that we get a lot is a dead tree in a front yard. We don't have a dead tree ordinance with the city of College Station. So if there is a dead tree somewhere, we can't require someone to remove it.
Right.
But in HOA they can have that restriction, and they can say, we don't want any dead plants anywhere in our neighborhood. But then when someone goes to see Click Fix, or someone goes to our social media and they say, hey, there's this dead tree, or hey, their trash can is, I can see it from the street. It's pulled up to their house, right? But I can see it from the street.
Right.
That's not something we enforce.
Right.
Because a restriction is applicable only to that development, only to that tract, whereas the ordinance is citywide.
Right. So for those residents who may not be serving on a board or part of the HOA leadership, but live in a neighborhood, live in an HOA, what is your suggestion to them on how they can be informed on the rules and what they can do if they have questions or concerns?
Yeah. So if they have questions or concerns with their HOA in particular, I would for sure direct them to their HOA board. They have board meetings more often than not, monthly, maybe yearly, but directing them to go talk to their HOA first. If they don't, then they can come seek advice from our office, because we represent everybody. We cannot give you, like, here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do, but we can help you figure out what your next steps might be.
Right.
As far as, have you tried talking to your HOA board with this? Or here is the process for filing a formal complaint with not just with your HOA, but with the next folks in line to help kind of govern that. But with just the general residents, again, I would say give your HOA board grace. Like, everybody just needs a little bit more grace.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So for the partnership workshop, when and where will the workshop take place?
Yeah, so it's going to be Saturday, August 15th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It is here at College Station City Hall. It'll be in either Council Chambers or Bush 4141. It'll be both on the first floor of City Hall. It'll be the only thing going on that day. So if you are showing up to City Hall, we'll be able to figure it out and point you in the right place. It is free to attend for anybody,
Always good.
which is always good. And there will be food. There'll be lunch.
Ooh, exciting. And I know space is limited for this, so how does registration work?
Yeah. So if we've been promoting it on our social media, and then we have it in our neighborhood newsletter, which goes out every Monday night. And our calendar, our city calendar that we have.
Yes.
It's on there too. And there's a registration link. You just fill it out. You tell us a little bit about yourself. Nothing crazy. We just want to know, like, what neighborhood are you in? And are you on the board, or are you thinking about being on the board?
Right.
Just so we can get an idea of
The audience.
the audience.
And is registration required, or is it just heavily suggested?
We request that you do register, but I am always one that if I have space in a program, I'm never one to turn someone away.
Gotcha. And if somebody has questions before the event, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, they can email me at tmorris@cstx.gov. Just T like turtle. It's fun.
That's a good reminder.
T is in turtle. tmorris@cstx.gov. They can email neighborhood services at cstx.gov. We monitor that inbox as well. And yeah, or contact our social media.
Yes, and I will direct you straight to Taitelyn. So for our students, where can they find reliable information about city ordinances, neighborhood expectations, and local resources?
Yeah, so it depends. If you're an A&M student, we work with the off-campus student services office a lot over at A&M, and they are reliable. They are very, very good at their jobs. And if you have a random question that you don't feel comfortable taking to the city for whatever reason, you can take it to their office.
Right.
And if they don't know the answer, they know how to get into contact with us to get an answer. But they're at the service of our A&M students. For everybody who's living off campus, they're there to help you with like roommate situations or figuring out next steps whenever you do get a citation.
Yeah.
Helping to kind of figure that out. Be a branch between A&M and then us for off-campus students. You can reach out to me. I am, like, again, I have a whole big vat of knowledge in my brain about what is going on. And then what I always tell students is that if I don't know the answer, I know the people who know the answer.
Right.
And I can get you an answer.
Yes.
And so I am there. We also do new resident welcome bags. So if you are wanting to go the route of just comfortability and not necessarily inconveniencing someone by reaching out and sending them an email, which, by the way, is not an inconvenience if you're just curious about something. But we have new resident welcome bags, new student welcome bags that you can request, and those are free too.
Now, when I was in school, I'm not going to say how many years ago, I was a commuter. So I lived at home and drove to school. And then I did end up living on campus at my university, but I never lived off campus. So I know for our A&M students, a lot of the housing is off campus.
Yes.
So what advice do you have for students living off campus for the first time?
My gosh, a lot of advice. So I was a student who never lived on campus. I went to A&M. I never lived on campus because the dorm that I wanted sold out before I was able to get my housing.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I don't want to live on campus if it wasn't in one of these dorms. And so I lived off campus. And one thing I would say is read reviews. If you have the opportunity to talk to residents who live there, talk to residents who live there. And then never sign a lease that day. Right. Like if you feel pressured at all to sign the lease immediately, like before you leave, walk away.
Yeah.
That's my like biggest piece of advice. Because a lot of landlords will take advantage of students, or a lot of just groups think of students as they don't read, right? They're not going to read the full lease. And there's very few protections that we as a government can offer our students, but whatever we can, we try. But I would say read your lease fully to know what you are buying into.
Yes. And if you have questions, or if those, I know we said last week, if the little hairs on the back of your neck stick up, you get those red flags, pause, ask questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking the property manager, you can ask a parent, ask a friend, ask somebody else. You can ask us. We can, try and steer you in the right direction. So yes, definitely ask questions.
Ask questions. I had a student reach out to me being like, is this a normal part of a lease? And I was like, yeah, actually it is a normal part of the lease. Here's another one that reads the same way.
Right.
They were just confused. They were like, I have no clue what this means.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's completely normal, actually. Nothing to worry about. It reads differently based off of who's writing the lease, but the general premise is the same. So I'm happy to field those questions wherever possible.
Yeah. And for our students who are moving into neighborhoods, not necessarily the apartment complexes, why is it so important for them to introduce themselves to their neighbors?
Ugh. We live in a world, and I'm guilty of this myself, but we live in a world where we're so on our phones and in our own stratospheres that we forget about other people sometimes. I will be the first to admit I'm guilty of it. But your life just gets so much better when you know that you have other people looking out for you.
Right.
Right? If you don't introduce yourself to your neighbors, they don't know to be looking out for you.
Right.
Right? But if you introduce yourself, you talk to them and you get to know them, even if it's just a surface level conversation where you learn their name. Yeah. Right? Even if it's just that. Like having someone that you can turn to for anything makes life a lot easier.
Right. I know in the community living course, I think it was police or it might have been code, would always say, just at the very least, give them your contact information just in case something happens. And, if you do decide to have people over or you're, God forbid anything happens, there's some suspicious activity happening, they know to call you and they know to, like you said, look out for each other.
Yeah, that is very true. Like if you don't know your neighbor and they don't have your contact information, if you're away from your house for a weekend and a pipe bursts and it's flooding, your neighbor is probably going to be the first one to see that.
Yeah.
Right? And if they can't contact you, what are they supposed to do?
Right.
So that's just another little piece to it where if you're out of town, they can look out for your property.
Right. This was back when I lived up north. We had some sort of issue where our basement flooded, and I was a first-time homeowner, and I had no idea how to handle that situation. The water was up to my waist. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. So I went to my neighbor, and I said, "Hey, Dwayne, I need help. Like, I don't know what to do." And he was like, "Well, let's go take a look." And, just having that support of
someone else.
I'm by myself. My basement is full of water. I don't know what to do, but I know that I can count on my neighbors to come and help me is very, very, I don't want to say rewarding, but it's reassuring. Yes. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So what are some simple ways students can be respectful neighbors throughout the school year?
Knowing the city ordinances.
Yes.
Right? Knowing when it is trash day, when it is recycling day, when it is bulk and brush day. Getting to know your neighbors and being like, hey, if we're ever causing you any problems, just send us a text. We're happy to make things right because we want to be good neighbors. Knowing city ordinances, being a good neighbor, and just knowing that, like, you're sharing space with a lot of people.
Right.
It's not just you and your own little world.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's not me and my little world. Like, I'm sharing space with other people, and they have just as much right to a happy living space as I do.
Right. So before we go, where can people find out more information about everything that we talked about today?
Yeah, there is a lot of places where you can find more information. Again, our social media, Grace runs it. Shout out to Grace. She does a really good job. She does a great job of making sure everything goes on our social media. So follow it.
Yes.
Give us a like.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube.
This too, right here. Watch this. Following us on our social media, because we do actively want resident participation in everything that we do. We cannot do anything without our residents.
Right.
And everything that we do is for our residents. And so just know that we want your engagement, and we want you to know what we're doing in the city. Our website is also a really good website. I have a page on there, cstx.gov-neighbor, which has a whole big list of all the stuff related to the neighborhood partnership program and everything like that. And then our calendar that we have, where we post literally every single event that is going on, that is City of College Station related. So
yes. Well, before we go, we have a quick lightning round of fun questions. Are you ready?
I'm nervous.
Oh, boy, don't be. Okay, finish the sentence. A good neighbor is someone who...
knows their neighbors.
Knows their neighbors. Good answer. The most underrated HOA responsibility.
I'm going to say probably I really love an HOA that makes an importance on nature.
Nature.
Right? Like trees and flowers, and just having it like look nice, and because I'm a girl who loves flowers.
Yeah.
And houses look kind of sad if they don't have any nature or foliage with it. So those HOA responsibilities of, some of them will have, you have to have a certain amount of this or a certain amount of that.
Yeah.
But having an emphasis on flowers and trees. I love that.
Absolutely. And one word that describes a successful HOA.
One who listens.
Listens. Yes. Yeah. And what is the funniest neighborhood issue you have ever encountered?
I don't know. I like the small things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this is such an easy fix. Don't worry. I would probably say, like, we had an issue with some of our street signs fading, and they're a big deal, right? But it's such an easy fix with our traffic guys that, if it comes up and there's like, oh, my street sign is not working, that's something that we can fix real quick.
Yeah.
And then get it replaced like that week. And so that's just one of the fun ones where it won't take a lot to make that a little bit better.
Right.
So.
And finally, what is one neighborhood trend you'd love to see more of?
I love when our neighborhoods have like block parties.
Yeah.
Or get-togethers. Like I know of one neighborhood during July 4th, they got together in a parking lot and they were able to watch the fireworks from I Heart America.
Yeah.
And that was honestly such a fun idea, where it's like they were able to reap the benefits of the City of College Station's I Heart America program, but also be with their neighbors.
Right.
And so I love when a neighborhood does that, like small little things that just gets people together.
Yeah, I feel like you see things like that in movies all the time, like a neighborhood party or a neighborhood barbecue, but I've never experienced that in real life.
Maybe you should do it.
Yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should be the one.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Taitelyn.
Of course, yeah.
And that's what's up.